Good morning, YouTube. How are we doing? Welcome to the first in what I hope is going to be a series called How to Make Photos Like, where I study the work of an influential photographer from history, distill their work into a few lessons that you can learn, and then I'll go out with my own camera and attempt to apply those lessons to my own work. On today's inaugural episode, we're going to be focusing on the work of Ernst Haas, who was an Austrian photographer who did a lot of his work in New York in the 1950s and 1960s. The first lesson we can learn from Ernst Haas is color. Now, Ernst Haas was a true pioneer of color. The start of his career was an era where color film was frowned upon and it was thought of as not artistic. In addition to this, the film itself was actively quite bad. Ernst Haas shot on Kodachrome, and early versions of that had an ISO of 10 or 25, so the light gathering was basically non-existent. And because of that, and just the prevalence of black and white in fine art photography, color photography wasn't really thought of as anything that any serious photographer would do. But Ernst Haas and a few notable peers, which we might cover later in this series, were really people that changed that. Haas was the first person to have a full gallery of color work featured in Life magazine and in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. But more than that, Haas was a person who used color in photography to extend and develop the meaning of a scene. So many of his famous images have the bright and vibrant colors of Kodachrome as one of the primary subjects. It's not just about making a photograph in color, it's about making a photograph of color. The second of today's lessons is about motion. Now, Ernst Haas was famous for using a slower shutter speed on his photos. Partially that was to help with the light gathering, but partially it played into his artistic style as well. If a scene was in motion, he didn't want to freeze it. He wanted to introduce a ton of intentional motion blur, which he would do by using a slower shutter and also intentional camera movements. Now, this approach creates a beautiful sense of energy and dynamism in his work. He wasn't capturing a moment in time, and he wasn't attempting to freeze a moment. He was attempting to show the fleeting kinetic experience of a scene. So much of his work has a beautiful and surreal quality to it, which brings us on to lesson number 3. The third lesson we can take away from Haas's work is the idea of abstraction. Now, in some ways this is a combination of the first two things as well, and they certainly do feed into it, but in general, the feeling you get from a lot of Haas's work is about how much of it is about the shape of something, and the texture of something, and the feel of something. It's not necessarily about having a clearly defined subject, it is instead about having something that feels right, and something that invokes an emotional response in the viewer, whether or not it's even clear what that is at first glance. Some of my favorite photographs by Haas are ones where you actually have no idea what it's a photograph of the first time you look at it. You're taken in by the composition and the structure of the image, and the actual form of the thing only becomes apparent on a second viewing. Now, abstract photography is something I've personally always struggled a lot with. It's not really been my forte, so I'm really hoping that this is an area where I can learn some lessons. But anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's grab the camera, get out into the city, and see what we can come up with. So, for today's photos, we are going to be using the Fuji X-T5 with a 50mm equivalent lens, which was very similar to what Haas would have used. He did most of his work on a Leica. I don't have a Leica, unless someone wants to sponsor the channel, and then I can get a Leica. But for now, this will have to do. The big advantage of what we can do here is use a Kodachrome film simulation. And I've actually locked the ISO to the lowest it can possibly go on this camera, which is 64. The thing I was saying earlier kind of applies here, right? It's so Haas was using color film, which had incredibly low ISO. His was around like a 25 or a 10 even at times on like early Kodachrome. We don't exactly have that here, but we have close enough. And as a reminder, we're going to be focusing on color, texture, motion, shapes of things. It's going to be a much slower photo walk than I'm usually used to. Let's see what we can come up with. I will check in with you later. Okay, we have this bus going past. We'll see if we can get this in motion as sort of a panning shot. Not bad, actually. That's actually okay. Kind of happy with that. I think we'll try that again. We'll try the same idea. Yeah, I think that kind of works. It's got a color pop to it because the bus is bright green and blue. And then it's got like that, it's got that kind of motion blur. See, this up here, this corner is quite nice. If I can get a good angle on that, make sure I'm not going to get in anyone's way while I do this. Like, because we've got that reflected pigeon. It's going to be a crop, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with cropping. Here's some flowers. This is a classic. This is there's a very famous Haas photo of a close-up of a flower. This lens does not do the close-up thing particularly well. So this is likely to be another crop-in situation, but again, that's fine. I'm really liking the look of those red chairs surrounded by the yellow. It's like, it's interesting, because I know how I would take that photo. But if I was really doing it in a... Yeah, that works. It's kind of a low down angle there. So we've got that nice kind of light spill coming through. We've got some contrasting colors. And then I will try the thing where I try and turn this into a slowed down shutter and pan while the shutter's open. Just slightly. Just make it a little smeary. It's one of those, I don't personally like that as much. It's not really my style, but if we're talking about the whole thing of trying to do more in sort of things that are abstract, things that have a texture to them, I mean, in a way, actually as well here, this kind of splotch of paint, that's got to be something we consider. Something I do want to do with this series is just talk about different ways of seeing the world, and I think that that's one of them. I think that, like, that kind of uneven paintwork is not something that I would ever have thought about before. Whereas that scene over there normally would have been, but we're going to ignore that today on purpose. We're going to be disciplined. I mean, there's so many reflective windows down here. Like, we surely can get something that's interesting in one of these. Don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Let's have a little experiment, see if we can find something fun. That works though, that's okay. So those are quite fun, because that almost looks like a double exposure, but it's not. And that's something that Haas did a lot of. Like, there are so many of his photos where I know that sometimes he did use double exposures. That was in his toolkit, but I don't think it was a go-to. I think that a lot of his work, people think that it's a double exposure, and it's actually not. Because you don't need it to be. If you find enough things that are reflective and you layer enough light and enough reflective surfaces on top of each other, and there's enough things that are passing through the frame, you get photos like that one just there, which are in no way actually are double exposures, but you could almost believe that it was. Oh, these shutters down over this cafe. This is actually kind of a plus side of being out so early, because this is some really, really nice textural stuff. And I like this like chipped part here. See, this to me here is something. This is like, it's very, very bright. It's very colorful. It's got a nice reflection. I would love it to frame up something in the middle of the A. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. Yeah, not quite as reflective as you'd want it to be to get that, but I think it was a nice idea. Yeah, this is very similar to the sort of thing I was talking about. You've got like a very, very reflective window. And we'll see if we can make something with the texture of this as well. So this is nice, but it's not quite colorful enough. Like, the busk has a nice color pop, but the window itself is very dark. That's quite good. I think that could be the one. Yeah, quite happy with that actually. It's not quite got the color to really be exactly what we're looking for. It's got a couple of the elements, but it's kind of missing that color pop, which you get from like this TK Maxx or this tourist trap. You know, like, man, that was harsh. Wasn't wrong, but it was harsh. Like, you've got those very, very bright colors in those shops, but then you don't have the super reflective thing going on, unless you do. Unless we can get a reflection coming out of this white part here. Oh, that's great. That almost makes it look misty. That's fantastic, actually. Very happy with that one. That's really got that abstract look that I was going for. That's really, really fun. This isn't one that I've planned, this is just more the one that I've seen. The colours here are just too nice to pass up. Have this as a nice foreground anchor. Get some things going past for the background. That's really nice. It's another one of those ones where you just don't know if that's a double exposure or not. Yeah, when the bus is gone, it doesn't work. That's very interesting. Kind of needed that anchor. We've got layers of reflections and then reflections in reflections. And there's a person's face coming through that billboard, which comes through. The layering that's happening in that shot is just absolutely wild. Yeah, I'm not sure which one of those I'm going to end up preferring, but that's a few nice options. Probably the first one. That always tends to be the way, right? Like, is that a relatable thing for other photographers that are watching this, that your first attempt at a photo ends up being the one that you keep, and then you've taken 8 more versions of the same thing, but you end up not liking any of them as much as the original? That's totally a thing for me. Sound off in the comments, let me know. Wrapping up before I head home, what do I think I've learned, and do I think I've done a good job at learning lessons from Ernst Haas? I think overall I would say that the answer is yes. There are a few aspects of his work which I didn't manage to emulate. I think particularly like the really harsh lighting that he used to play around with a lot. That was not really present today. It's a super overcast day, so we weren't ever really going to get that, which is fine. I can maybe try that another time. But I think in terms of the kind of slowed down abstract stuff, I think I did quite a good job. I was quite happy with a lot of the photos, and it's nice to slow down. It's nice to focus on the shape and texture of things. So overall, I would say this has been a good set of lessons. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you have, give it a subscribe if you've loved it, and share it to a friend. That would mean a lot to me. I will see you in the next episode of this. I will definitely be doing more like this. I haven't decided which other photographers I'm going to look at yet, but I've really loved this video, so I will certainly be doing more. So I will catch you in the next one, but for now, peace out, have a really great day.